This reveals the three great worlds, Corpor, Atmosphere, and Etheria. While other Bibles tell that the world was created, this one reveals how the Creator made it. As other Bibles describe heavens for the spirits of the dead, this one shows where these heavens are and the glory and work that spirits enjoy, showcasing the wisdom, power, love, and glory of the Almighty for human understanding. Apology, the universe is full, everything is connected, everything speaks. Be the recorder of these words. This is the panic earth language, the first language. What do the bird, the beast, the stars, the sun say? It is their souls speaking. Hear the soul and repeat it. This light leads you to the origin. Chapter 1, verse 1. All was, all is, all ever shall be. The all spoke, and motion was, and is, and ever shall be. Being positive, it was called he and him. The all motion was his speech. Verse 2, he said, I am, and he understood all things, seen and unseen. Everything in the universe is part of him. Verse 3, he said, I am the soul of all. Everything seen is my body and person. Verse 4, by my presence all things exist. By my presence there is life. By my presence the living come into life. I am the quickener, the mover, the creator, the destroyer. I am first and last. Verse 5, though I appear as two entities, I am one. These entities are the unseen, potent, and the seen, impotent, called Corpor. Verse 6, with these two entities reflecting myself, I made all living things. The potent part is life, while the corporeal part is impotent. Verse 7, over all life on earth I made man, male and female. So that man might recognize me, I commanded him to give me a name, by virtue of my presence. Man named me not after anything in heaven or on earth, but after the sounds the wind makes. He said, Eo, now pronounced Jehovah, and written as such. Verse 1, Jehovih said, by virtue of my presence created I the seen and the unseen worlds, and I commanded man to name them. And man called the seen worlds Corpor, and the unseen worlds Es, and the inhabitants of Corpor man called Corporians. But the inhabitants of Es he called sometimes Zins, and sometimes spirits, and sometimes angels. Verse 2, Jehovih said, I created the earth and fashioned it, and placed it in the firmament, and by my presence brought man forth a living being. A corporeal body gave I him, that he might learn corporeal things, and death I made that he might rise in the firmament, and inherit my Etherean worlds. Verse 3, to Es I gave dominion over Corpor. With Es I filled all place in the firmament. But Corpor I made into earths and moons and stars and suns. Beyond number made I them, and I caused them to float in the places I allotted to them. Verse 4, as I divided into two parts, and I commanded man to name them, and he called one Etheria and the other Atmosphere. These are the three kinds of worlds I created. But I gave different densities to Atmospherean worlds and different densities to the Etherean worlds. Verse 5, for the substance of my Etherean worlds I created Eth, the most rarefied. Out of Eth made I them, and I made Eth the most subtle of all created things, and gave to it power and place, not only by itself, but also power to penetrate and exist within all things, even in the midst of the corporeal worlds. And to Eth gave I dominion over both Atmosphere and Corpor. Verse 6, in the all highest places created I the Etherean worlds, and I fashioned them of all shapes and sizes, similar to my corporeal worlds. But I made the Etherean worlds inhabitable both within and without, with entrances and exits, in arches and curves, thousands of miles high and wide, and overruled I them with all perfect mechanism, and in colors and movable chasms and mountains in endless change and brilliancy. To them I gave motions and orbits and courses of their own. Independent made I them, and above all other worlds in potency and majesty. Verse 7, neither created I one Etherean world like another in size or density or in component parts, but every one differing from another, and with a glory matchless, each in its way. Verse 8, Atmospherean worlds I also created in the firmament, and I gave them places and orbits and courses for themselves. But Atmospherean worlds I created shapeless and void of fixed form, for they are in process of condensation or dissolution, being intermediate in condition betwixt my Etherean and my corporeal worlds. Of 3 degrees of density created I them, and I commanded man to name them, one he called a G, and one Ga, and one Nebulae. Verse 9, but all of them are composed of the same substances, being like the earth, but rarefied. Nor is there on the earth or in it one thing, even iron or lead or gold or water or oil or stones, but the same things are in my Atmospherean worlds. As I have given light to the earth, so have I given light to many of them. And all such have I commanded man to call comets, and even so named he them. Verse 10. And I also created atmosphere around about my corporeal worlds, together made I them. Chapter 3, verse 1. Thus spake Jehovah, by the light of Cosmon proclaimed he these things amongst the nations of the earth. Man looked upward in prayer, desiring to know the manner of all created things, both on earth and in heaven. And Jehovih answered him, saying, verse 3, The whirlwind made I as a sign to man of the manner of my created worlds. As thou beholdest the power of the whirlwind, gathering up the dust of the earth and driving it together, know that even so do I bring together the Agi and Gi and nebulae in the firmament of heaven. By the power of the whirlwind create I the corporeal suns and moons and stars. And I commanded man to name the whirlwinds in the Etherean firmament, and he called them vortices and wark, according to their shape called he them. Verse 4, By the power of rotation, swift driving forth in the extreme parts, condense I the atmosphere and worlds that float in the firmament, and these become my corporeal worlds. In the midst of the vortices made I them, and by the power of the vortices I turn them on their axes and carry them in the orbits I allotted to them. Wider than to the moons of a planet have I created the vortices, and they carry the moons also. Verse 5, Around about some of my corporeal worlds have I given nebulous belts and rings, that man might comprehend the rotation of my vortexan worlds. Verse 6, For each and every corporeal world created I a vortex first, and by its rotation and by the places in the firmament whither it travelleth, caused I the vortex to conceive the corporeal world. Verse 7, A great vortex created I for the sun, and within this vortex and subject to it, made I the vortices of many of the corporeal worlds. The sun vortex I caused to rotate, and I gave it power to carry other vortices within it. According to their density and position are they thus carried forth and around about the sun. Verse 8, Think not, O man, that I created the sky a barren waste and void of use. Even as man in the corporeal form is adapted to the corporeal earth, so is he in the spiritual form adapted to my Etherean worlds. 3 great estates have I bestowed on man, the corporeal, the atmospherian, and the Etherean.